Okay. Bismillah. Assalamu alaikum, Cam. We're just going to start off now right away, hopping into lesson 2. We're going to cover status, associations, and prepositions. So as we reviewed before, a noun has 4 properties that you want to look out for. It has the definiteness, number, gender, and status. So we talked about definiteness and how there's 2 parts to it. There's indefinite and then there's definite. Indefinite is when you're referring to something that's not specific, and then definite is when you're referring to something that is specific. And we talked about all those signs. So now we're going to get into another property, and that is the state. So there are 3 states in Arabic that a noun can go into. The first is rafa, and that's usually represented by a word ending with a dhamma. So that symbol over there that produces an oo sound, right? That's a dhamma. And then the second is nasb, when a word ends with a fatha. And then the third is jar, when a word ends with a kasra. Now this isn't always the case, and there are exceptions to it. Sometimes you can have a word that's in a state of jar, but it will have a fatha instead of a kasra. And there's just exceptions to that, and we're going to go ahead and learn those later on, okay? So just for now, remember, rafa, when a word ends with a dhamma, the thing that makes an oo sound. Nasb, when a word ends with a fatha, the thing that makes an a sound. Jar, when a word ends with a kasra, the thing that makes an e sound. So we have 2 examples here of rafa, and a word can be in rafa, having a dhamma on the end, whether it's just 1 dhamma or 2 dhammas, right? So it can be indefinite and still be in a state of rafa. So kitabun, because it ends with an un, and al-kitabu, because it ends with an u. Both end with a dhamma, so therefore they're in a state of rafa. So what does this actually mean, right? So all nouns by default are in a state of rafa. So in their default forms, they look like this, pretty much, right? They're not even definite, they're indefinite. They just look like that. And there's other things that happen around it to cause them to go into those other states. And we'll study those down below. So a word that's in rafa, usually in a nominal sentence, which in Arabic, there are 2 types of sentences. There is a nominal sentence and a verbal sentence. A nominal sentence is a sentence that begins with a noun, and a verbal sentence is a sentence that begins with a verb, right? So he ran to the market would be an example of a verbal sentence because it begins with he ran, right? While a nominal sentence would be the car is driving away because it begins with the car or car, which is a noun, right? So in a nominal sentence, they can be either the subject or the predicate. Usually that's what it represents, right? The subject and the predicate. So the subject in a nominal sentence is what is being spoken about, while the predicate is the news about that thing. So the car is black. So the car would be the subject. It's the focus of this sentence, and then is black would be the predicate. It's the news about this car, right? So here we have a sentence, and it says al-babu mughlaqun. It means the door is closed. So the door is the subject, and is closed is the information about it. And both of these things are in a state of rafa because of the oo, right? That dhamma on the end that makes that oo sound. We can tell that's in a state of rafa. And this is just a side note, we'll study sentences later, but generally in Arabic, the subject is definite. So as we can see, it has an alif lam, and it has no tanween, making it definite. And the predicate, the news about it, is indefinite. So we can see just by those signs that we're dealing with a nominal sentence that's complete, right? It's a sentence that's complete. So al-babu mughlaqun, the door is closed. Here we have another example. As-sayyaratu jadidatun. So as-sayyaratu is definite because it has alif lam and no tanween, and then jadidatun is indefinite, and both are in a state of rafa because of the un on the end and the u, right? That dhamma right there is giving us that sign. It's in a state of rafa, and we know in a nominal sentence when things are usually in a state of rafa, it means it's the subject and the news about the subject, right? And then we have another example here, and this one's a little bit different. So, whoops, I dropped the mic. Okay, and this one's a little bit different. So remember how we talked about how the ending usually has a dhamma, but that's not always going to be the case with rafa? Well, in Arabic, there are certain words that are fixed, and one of those types are words that are pointing words. So here we have hada, which means this is. It's a pointing word, like you're pointing to something. This is a tree. And even though it's in a state of rafa, it doesn't take a dhamma. It's just always going to look like that. And you're just going to have to know based on its context. The way that I can figure out that it's in a state of rafa is because there's nothing around it impacting it. There's no word before it that could make a difference to it. It's just chilling out there on its own at the beginning of the sentence. So this would translate as, this is a tree. Shajarun, meaning a tree, because it's indefinite. We know that because of the tanween, the double ending on the end of the word, and no alif lam. So we're not speaking about a specific tree, but a general tree. So this is a tree. Okay, moving on. In a verbal sentence, which is a sentence that begins with a verb, we said he ran to the car would be an example because it begins with he ran, right? In a verbal sentence, the doer is in the form of marfu'. Sorry about that, I forgot to mention this, but usually when a word is in a state of rafa, people just refer to it as marfu'. That literally just means a noun that's in a state of rafa, right? It's called marfu'. So when the doer is in the form of marfu' in a verbal sentence, when a word is when a word has rafa and it's coming after a verb in a verbal sentence, that usually means it's the doer. That's what it serves as. So kharaja here means he left, and then uzayru, you see the dhamma there on the end making the u sound, that means that it's the doer. So uzair left. That's how we would translate it. Uzair is the one doing the action. And yeah, that's all we got to say for rafa. We'll see you again in the next part.